Sutton is a United States veteran and a small business owner who wants to become the next state senator for the newly created Senate District 20, which covers parts of downtown, James Island, and West Ashley. I talk one-on-one with Ed for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, and if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook. Ed Sutton, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Quintin, it's good to see you. And I always say that no campaign is official until you sit down with Quintin. So I'm glad to get that stamp of approval today with my official Quintin interview.
Well, I appreciate it greatly. I'm bringing you back on Quintin's Close-Ups, Ed, because obviously you made news in the fall because you're going to be running for the South Carolina State Senate District 20, which was newly created, and it actually covers portions of Charleston and James Island. According to WCIV, the seat is currently held by state senator, that is Dick Harpootlian, where it was initially elected to represent the Richland and Lexington areas of South Carolina. The state Senate District 22 seat, as I mentioned, is relatively new. And due to the population growth and redistricting, Charleston was given that district from the Midlands in 2021. I know that obviously your campaign will really encircle parts of West Ashley and, as I mentioned, James Island. Moreover, you have three issues that you want to tackle: infrastructure, housing, and education. So tell me, Ed, with all of your experience in real estate and working in the community, why this district? Why now?
Yeah. And the easy question for why this district is, number one, I live in the district, so that certainly a big part of it. But this is exciting because I still haven't found the exact date, but I think you would have to go back to the 70s for the last time Charleston County gained a state Senate seat. So that's great for us because obviously that means more influence. The more senators you have representing your county, which is of course population driven, the more influence you're going to have in the state legislature. So that's pretty exciting for the region. And you're right, for Charleston, this is a brand new district. District 20 currently sits up in Richland County, but because over the last decade, our population growth has just skyrocketed. They're going to move that district from Richland County down here to Charleston County. And you mentioned that downtown Charleston, West Ashley up the roughly about Bees Ferry, and then James Island all the way down to about Fort Johnson Road. And so it's parts of Marley Kempson's old district and Sandy Sinn's district that are kind of being mashed together. And I'll say from a geographic standpoint, it's pretty exciting because it's compact. And so a lot of similar issues. I'll say a lot of the issues are very much in line with what we heard with the mayor's election this past fall. That be of course, I already mentioned infrastructure, particularly with the flooding and the traffic there. But growth, right? Like I mentioned, we're getting this district because we're growing a lot. So we do have growing pains that we have to pay attention to and kind of provide a clear path forward. The other big thing to know about this district is, everything in South Carolina, unfortunately, is gerrymandered. We're one of the worst gerrymandered. You can look at any independent study, and they'll highlight how bad our gerrymandering is. And this seat is no different. This has about a 19 percentage point Democratic advantage that Democrats have, compared to the last decade, voting habits that you'll have. A Democratic candidate will come into this race with about a 19 point advantage. Personally, I wish that was diluted. I wish we would spread that out and have more competitive districts. But the folks in Columbia that draw these maps, they try to pack as many Democrats in certain areas into these districts. That way, other places around the state are less and less competitive. And while we're on that topic, one of the things that you look at any independent report. Here, Princeton Review is a good one, and I can send you a link to look at that. We have 46 state Senate seats in South Carolina, and right now only one of those is competitive. Obviously, this is not the one I'm running for. Is now competitive in a general election, and usually the way they measure that is if that 50% lean is within 5% either side for either party is generally considered competitive. So out of 46 seats in the state, we only have one district that's truly competitive that either party can win. I think that's a great disservice to the people of South Carolina. And that's something also that we'll be talking about a lot in Columbia is pushing next time we do redistricting. I'm very much a fan of pushing that towards an independent panel because when you have, heavily gerrymandered lines, people's voices are left out, and the people you get elected are not a true representation of the makeup, the demographic makeup of South Carolina. So anyway, all that being said, District 20 right here in Charleston, and excited for this run campaign I launched the week of Thanksgiving.
Right.
Really good, strong fundraising support out the gate, which I'm very honored for. And obviously, I've been working hard in the community the last number of years, and right now we're doing really good. We're averaging about a new local official coming on each week to endorse the campaign as well. So far, 11 local officials have endorsed, plus a good bit of handful of community leaders, including full past chairs of the county Democratic Party. And counting. I've got some more that have committed that I'll be announcing over the next couple of weeks. I feel like we're off to a really strong start with this, but we've got what is it, about about 8 months to go now in the race. So everybody that knows me, I go full force at anything I put my mind to. So I'll be working hard the next 8 months to earn these votes.
Well, there's the interview. Thank you for your time.
How's that for an intro?
Yeah, there you go. And we just got some breaking news from the city of Charleston. As you mentioned, the peninsula is going to be part of your district. So they're actually going to be holding a forum to discuss the peninsula plan for the city of Charleston here in a couple of weeks. So we'll be looking forward to that. But let me ask you, how do you make South Carolina Senate District 20 competitive today so that South Carolina can be better tomorrow?
Yeah, so I like I said, very heavy gerrymandered. I'm very much for. I think the easy solution there is an independent council or independent committee, whatever you want to call it, draws lines going forward. Legislators should not pick their own districts. That is a foul. We need to remove legislators from the process and let independent groups pick these districts. I'll throw out one stat to you. With each answer, I only do one stat because beyond that, people's eyes roll in the back of their head. But on the state house maps, I think it was the Legal Women Voters. They ran 1 billion simulations on the maps that they approved. And out of 1 billion simulations, only 1,400 were worse gerrymandered. And when that came out, somebody made a comment like, don't show that the house drawers, the other 1,400 maps, they may go, and do that. So that just tells you, especially with computers and everything, how bad, these maps were drawn from a partisan gerrymandering perspective. So my position on that is independent take legislators out of the process, let an independent council or committee draw these district lines.
But going back to my question, Ed, how can you actually make State Senate District 20 competitive today so that South Carolina can be better tomorrow as far as jobs, as far as quality of life, as far as infrastructure, as far as housing?
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, that was a question about representing the district. So Joe Riley's got a great quote. Cities they're either growing or they're dying, right? So we need to certainly focus on Charleston and James Islands because this district covers both the city of Charleston, town of James Island, plus some PSD areas as well. City Andrews being one of them. Focus on that growth and then focus on a way that I call it smart growth, right? That you're not, long-term residents are always concerned about, being priced out, pushed out type thing. So there certainly is a balance there. So most of the answers to your question about how we can make District 20 competitive from a growth advantage, I'll say number one is we've got to protect the peninsula downtown from flooding. The peninsula is state of South Carolina. Our tax revenue is largely different from property taxes, and there's two classes: the 4% and 6%. 6% being investment properties, commercial properties, second homes, those type of things. And that's where the majority of our revenue at the state comes from, and the city. So with downtown being largely a commercial corridor, that's kind of the easy way to put it is that's our economic engine for the area where we're producing the majority of our revenue. But if those properties are underwater and consistently flooding, it's like pouring water into your engine. It doesn't work. So I'm a big fan of what the Army Corps of Engineers is proposing, doing a perimeter protection Obviously, there's a lot of discussion how that will look. I don't think a concrete wall is the right way to go, but there's certainly an opportunity for earthen barriers around downtown. Because yeah, if downtown's flooding, we lose our tourism industry. We lose our business industry. That's a big problem. So that's, for me, priority number one is making sure that we protect our economic engine. In that vein, we also have to be aware that anytime you do a project that displaces water, there will be impacts elsewhere, and particularly in this case, James Island, right? So James Island's a little bit further and a little bit of West Ashley down the Ashley River, or more so into the harbor.
Yes, sir.
So as we look at that perimeter protection, what are we doing in West Ashley and James Island also to make sure that we're just not pushing that problem to another area there? So that's going back to my thing of smart, balanced growth type thing, not looking at problems and totally in a vacuum, realizing how that fits into our regional our regional issues as a whole when we work with the downtown
Yes, sir.
perimeter.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What is that going to do to the other parts of the region?
And unfortunately, I have 40 minutes, so I can't really focus on on this particular as a whole. But let me get to this.
Yeah.
Let me going back to what you said about obviously making District 20 competitive. How many longtime residents have actually been pushed out due to growth?
I don't have an exact number, but you can certainly look at the Postal Courier is very good about tracking housing demographics. And David Slade had an article. It was largely focused on North Charleston, but he has touched in Charleston in the past. But this past fall, about people, being priced out and migrations, and particularly in the terms of minority owners. Right, that's a big population that is getting a lot of economic pressure to move, further outside of 526. So one of the other big things that I'm a fan of is I sit on the board of CARTA, and one of the huge projects that is going to be transformational to our region is the Low Country Rapid Transit System. And along that, so that's going to be a mass transit that's going to help, with traffic congestion. But to truly get that system right, in my opinion, we have to encourage private developers and also public projects to build workforce affordable housing near those station nodes. And that way people can leave, their apartment and walk to a mass transit spot and be able to get around the region and kind of take cars out of the equation. So I see that as a very good pathway to help people stay in areas that they've lived in their whole life, is providing, the workforce housing near this coming mass transit, particularly within in the quarter mile of those LCRT stations.
And let me ask you this: how much land is available for workforce housing in those areas where those particular stations will be located?
Yeah, so there, I'll say more opportunities I feel like exist along Rivers Avenue, which is obviously outside of District 20. But again, going back to my point, nothing happens in a vacuum, right? I mean, these lines, quite frankly, in a lot of ways, are arbitrary. Flooding doesn't stop at a political boundary. Same thing with our workforce housing and affordability issue. Those issues don't stop at a political boundary. So the way I look at that is not totally confined to District 20 as a strong. So there are a lot of opportunities along Rivers Avenue, and especially on the south end as you drive from Socorro Grade School up to Durant. What you see is a lot of single-story kind of strip mall structures. So I feel like there's a good opportunity to go vertical with a number of those properties, and that's where zoning comes in. So it's more of a municipality issue there, but that's where zoning comes into play. Make sure we pass overlays that encourage the right type of development that is tied into that system and will feed that system as well. As you get to the peninsula, it's a little bit more limiting because obviously we have more vertical structures downtown. Our land on the peninsula is limited, but that doesn't mean there's not opportunities there. There are absolutely opportunities there. And tying that back into one of the big issues we're going to hear in 2024 will be Union Pier again. If there's that workforce housing component with the new version of Union Pier that was there previously, there would be a fund that could potentially generate up to $1 billion to workforce housing. I think it would be obviously the city of Charleston would control that. So those are going to be City of Charleston dollars coming back into City of Charleston for workforce housing. So there are opportunities on the peninsula as well, and hopefully with that project, a new funding source available to build it.
And I want to get to that in just a second, but where exactly in District 20 can you actually put overlay districts right now?
I would first place I would look is along where the LCRT line is planned. So it's going to come down King Street Extension and
Right.
then make a turn to Meeting Street and then up Calhoun. So those are areas in particular. A quarter mile. The experts say you want to build your workforce dense housing within a quarter mile. So that's initially where I personally would look in those areas. So that's within walking distance.
Going back to Union Pier, to you, Ed, is this another fill and build approach?
I don't think you're going to see necessarily fill, like, bringing in dirt, especially with the pylon thing. You are going to see raised probably from a concrete pylon structure. But yeah, that whatever is built there has to be built above the floodplain. There's no question about that. I mean, that's a waterfront property right there. I undoubtedly, they're working in this perimeter Army Corps of Engineer perimeter protection into that project as well. But yeah, that area isn't. We'll have to have elevation, but again, I don't think you're going to necessarily. I'll put a big asterisk on this. I am not a site engineer,
Right.
so a lot of times, and politicians should do this. You defer to the experts, right? You talk to the folks that understand these issues, and let them drive the ship, because we see far too many times where politics will try to drive the boat when experts should be doing that. But I think you'll see it more from a pylon perspective. But there should not be anything built at Union Pier that is within the flood zone. It should be elevated above the flood zone there, because it would make no sense to build something that we know is going to flood over time. And then the other big consideration there is what kind of runoff impact, right? Anytime you build, now it is a site that's largely covered by concrete now, so there's not a lot of surfaces out there that absorb water runoff. But anytime you build something new, you're going to have, if it's not done correctly, impact to neighboring properties. So that's another priority thing, particularly that project, is making sure that underground infrastructure drainage is done. Obviously, you want to do that at the beginning of the project, so that way you're not pushing that water off to the neighboring properties.
But where is the water management infrastructure for the Charleston Peninsula to deal with stormwater, sea level rise, and of course, hurricane storm surge?
Yeah, so I would say that's a Dale Morris question. So again, I'm not an engineer. Like my job or my role here would be to go out and secure the funding and also help them sell the project. As far as where that particular site, what system, because I think downtown, don't quote me on the exact number, but I think there's north of like 20 different drainage basins. Which basin that ties off into, that's going to be a flood water storm, through the permitting process is going to determine there. So I'm not going to tell you, from a political perspective, it has to be this one, because again, I'm not a flooding
Right.
engineer, so it'd be inappropriate for me to, make that, hey, do it this way type thing.
What ideal elevation would be ideal for Union Pier?
Above the floodplain. Now, when you want to go, couple feet extra, to account for future things. Again, that goes back to the stormwater department. But what we can say for certain, it has to be built above the floodplain.
Because of Union Pier, will the city have to give up any tax revenue later on because of this?
I think it's to be determined at this point. Clearly, there's a task force that Mayor Tecklenburg put together that's carried over into Mayor Cogswell,
Right.
that is now studying it. It's made of community members, a number of industry groups as well. So they're studying that tax revenue now. And of course, from my understanding, is they've got a wish list of things they want to incorporate in this project. With and one of my personal big things is a affordable/workforce component. A mixture of being on site and then also providing a funding source to be able to do off site as well. But as far as the tax revenue portion goes, I think that's something that's in process right now. So I don't believe a number has been set for what the city will bring in or slash lose initially here. But my encouragement is, don't make this a tax giveaway here. If the city is expected to provide services for this property, enforce the trash, police, everything, stormwater, the city also has to have revenue to cover those expenses as well.
But is a TIF ideal for the Union Pier?
Yeah, I'm going to wait till the task force comes out. I think I'm not a politician that's going to come out here and tell you something like that before the experts get the opportunity to dig in and study. So I'm very much defer, maybe defer is not the right way. Wait for the experts to come to their opinion, see what the community has to say about it. So I think we're too early in the process here until the study is done to say if a TIF is necessary or not.
But would it be a TIF and be actually a bit of a crutch to development for Union Pier.
Did you say a TIF would be a
Yeah,
clutch to development?
yeah. Would that be a crutch to development in your mind?
Generally, would tips help? Developers like them, right? Because they're deferring or not paying tax for a while. So I think from a developer perspective, that's certainly something they're going to probably whatever developer is selected. That's the other thing too with this. Trying not to go into too far in the world of speculation. Lowe is backed out of this project, so right now
Right.
there's not a developer teed up for it. So it would be pure speculation. It's a safe bet to assume that they would want a TIF for it, but without a developer even being selected, that's not an answer that you can't find a firm response on.
Does using a flat percentage actually makes business sense for this particular project?
As far as is tax revenue, what would be collected?
Yes, sir.
They would be limited there by the state on that one, so it's be largely 6% because that's Act 388 going back to 2006. The only ways around that is if you have some kind of manufacturing tax credit, obviously a TIF. But ultimately, the majority of this, minus condos that are or apartments that are owned by individuals, which will be 4%.
Right.
But the majority, particularly the commercial structures on the site, will all be ultimately 6% tax property. So yeah, that is until Act 388 is repealed or there's a change in state tax code, that will be the percentage that will be assessed for the majority of this property.
How should the tax code be changed for affordable housing, such as projects like Union Pier?
So another issue that I'm a big fan of and follow very closely is the low income tax credit, LIHTC, right? I think that's been a great tool. Unfortunately, I think it was roughly about 2 years ago, the governor went back and they put a $20 million cap on that, which has really limited the program. I'm not necessarily opposed to a cap, but what I do know is that $20 million cap is way too low. The other issue that they changed, made an adjustment there that I feel like is hindering that program, is that 50% of that statewide has to be spent in rural areas and 50% have to be spent in urban areas. I think that's not a fair number there, right? Because obviously you're going to have a far higher percentage of affordable housing needs in an urban area versus a rural area. I mean, more people just live in an urban area versus rural. That's, by definition of that divide there. So taking it straight down the middle and saying 50% in rural, 50% in the urban, I think that does us a great disservice. And that's something that, as a state senator, I want to go back and revisit and make an adjustment there because you can, follow up this interview in Google and you'll see a huge drop in people utilizing the low income tax credit. So that's a great tool that's out there to encourage the private market to build affordable housing. But unfortunately, with the change that the governor made 2 years ago, that program is not utilized as well as it could be.
So how many people in District 20 currently are using that low tax credit?
I would have to Google current low income tax credit. One of the problems too with this being a new district is that when you go on the state website and look at LIHTC projects, they're not broken out by Senate districts at all. So it would take some, getting the ruler and looking at the map to see where they are. So I don't have an exact number of how many in progress low income tax credit or LIHTC tax credits are happening right now in District 20. But what I can tell you, not enough because we all know the top line number with that is that we need, by the end of the decade, by 2030, we need 16,000 affordable units, right? We're not even close to hitting that. We are not going to hit that number at our current pace unless there's been a drastic change at the state level to encourage more of that building. So the easy answer to that question is not enough LIHTC projects in progress.
Well, let me ask you this. What affordable needs are right now needed in District 20 from an urban standpoint versus rural?
Yeah, and I'll tie this back into infrastructure as well. So you see downtown, and as somebody who works in the restaurant industry as well, experience this, is your retail, hospitality, restaurant, folks with those salaries, they can't afford to live downtown at a market rate property. So that's a huge issue. So what happens is people end up living further out in the exterior, way beyond. I mean, you've got folks that are working in restaurants and in hotels, living in a Monk's Corner and driving all the way down, the downtown Charleston. That's an hour commute, so that's more congestion on our roads. So going back to the Low Country Rapid Transit project, that's an opportunity to house your labor closer to your workforce. The other thing with downtown labor shortage is those folks that do live further out in the exterior, whether it's Monk's Corner, Ladson, or Somerville, they're just going to drive until they find a job that meets their income, right? So a lot of times it could be North Charleston or West Ashley. And then well, why go further to downtown where I'm going to make the same amount of money, but I've got bigger traffic issues to deal with, and I've got to pay for my parking every single day. So downtown is really struggling right now. I'm hearing this from a lot of folks that own, businesses, restaurants downtown. That a lot of restaurants can't stay open 7 days a week. They've got to close multiple days just because they don't have the labor force to provide services. So yeah, that all ties back into infrastructure and particularly housing as well. So that's a big thing that we've got to one, recognize that there's a problem there. Which I think we do, but where do we go from here to address that, and how do we get a labor force housed closer to where places of employment are?
Now, how many people right now in the food and beverage industry that actually live outside of the food and beverage districts?
Again, I don't think anybody's tracking an exact number. Maybe that's something that the Department of Commerce or Department of Labor for South Carolina should be looking at. But I can't tell you, hey, there's 20,000 people that work in restaurants that are all living off Peninsula right now. I feel like that would be something somewhat difficult to track. But we do recognize, the immediate, like I mentioned, the immediate problem is businesses aren't able to staff up for 7 days a week. So we recognize that there's a problem there, and it's directly related to labor workforce housing.
Now, what workforce development projects would you initiate to prepare your residents in District 20 for these in-demand jobs that are coming here to the Low Country?
Yeah, like I said, encourage, look at public projects, and then look at how you encourage private developers to build housing, particularly within that quarter-mile radius of LCRT nodes. So that's number one of how we get after the workforce housing issue.
What type of, and actually this is ending in 10 minutes, unfortunately, but what type of housing do you need currently for your district? Is it single family? Is it multifamily?
Yeah, all the above, right? One thing a presentation that I'm a huge fan of and encourage you to look at is the Association of Realtors has put this together. And what's really great is they're actually going out and spending money right now to update this presentation. It's called The Missing Middle. And what that talks about is we're really good. This is a countrywide issue, not just a Charleston issue, but we've become really good at building single-family houses and then also apartments. But what we're not building is duplexes, triplexes, that missing middle portion to where and townhouses to where you can have more houses on a piece of property. And again, if it's done right, hopefully it's within walking distance of a mass transit. So there's a new study that's the Association of Realtors is working on how that directly relates to the Rivers Avenue corridor. So what I understand is that got put out towards the end of last year. So maybe sometime this year we'll get a peek at what they come back with. But yeah, I'm a fan of building more family, multifamily type stuff in areas that it makes sense. If you go to, I'll give you a good example where it wouldn't. If you were to go into a neighborhood like, for example, South Windermere, and say, hey, right on the back here, we're going to put an apartment complex. I think you're going to have a lot of pushback from the neighborhood, and that's not going to be something that's well received. But something further, closer, maybe right off of Highway 17 there, maybe taking one of these abandoned strip mall properties that's largely not used or underutilized, and allowing a project like that to go there. That probably makes more sense because again, you'd be closer to an opportunity to tie off to a bus system there. So again, going back to what I originally said, trying to find the balance there. But as far as what type of housing we need, all the above. Like people just, hey, we're a victim of our own success. People won't stop moving here. We got to find a place to put them.
Yes, sir. Unfortunately, I'm running out of time, but Ed Sutton, thank you so much for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Yeah, Quentin, great to see you. And hope, next time we can talk guns,
Yes.
education. We got a lot to discuss here, but it's an exciting district. And, the theme here for the campaign is building a bridge to better. I'm a big fan of the North Bridge project, and hopefully we'll get the RAISE grant this year. But bridges to me are symbolic, right? And what this campaign, what we're looking to do is, build a bridge between different parts of the community, also build a bridge between Charleston and Columbia's wallet, and making sure we get more of our tax dollars back here to address our big needs, a lot of them that we covered here today. But thank you for the opportunity, and look forward to talking to you more as the campaign develops.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.